and welcome back to another edition of Fan Talk, your favorite podcast by your favorite fan. That is, of course, me, Kyle Brinchley, in the house on this Wednesday. It is literally freezing outside. We've turned the corner. It is cold overnight. It's cold in the mornings. It's fall. It's November. That's what you got, baby. Welcome to Fan Talk. Fan Talk's a podcast you can find anywhere you get your podcasts. I also upload on YouTube for those who like to see the video version. Fan Talk is by the fans, for the fans. We're talking from our perspective because let's be real. Most of the people involved in the sports world are fans, right? Only a small percentage are players or coaches or executives or team owners, are media professionals, right? Most of the people in this community are fans. Let's represent our community. Let's talk sports from the perspective of our fan. We've been talking very heavily college football, and we'll continue that trend. Of course, we'll make our NFL picks there at the end as well. College football is the name of the game, is where we're going to start. They just released the rankings, the new updated rankings for the college football playoff last night. I'm sure you guys have already seen it, but not much changed, honestly. The top 15, the teams that are vying for a playoff spot. Again, if you're new here, if this is the first time you're listening to Fan Talk, hello, what's up? What's good? The college football playoff has 12 spots available for the 12 most deserving college football teams in the entire nation. Only 12 teams get in. There's a lot of deserving teams. There's a lot of good teams, limited spots. So at this time of year where there's only 1 week left, teams are really fighting to make their case, to convince the committee. There's a committee of about 10, 11, 12, 13 people who get together, look at the team's resumes, look at the team's strength of schedule, look at the team's records, head-to-heads, different things like that, and they vote and they decide. They don't use computer metric system like the BCS did. They don't use simply, who's number one, who's number two, right? They simply sit down, discuss, look at resumes, look at team schedules, and figure it out from there. Ironic that I say simply because it is actually very, very hard, especially now with 12 teams. I will die on that hill. Adding 12 teams to the college football playoff. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think it's fantastic. I think it's better than the 4, but 12 teams, now everyone thinks they should get in. Everybody believes they should get in. And what the committee and the larger college football community needs to not do is get angsty and be like, oh, well, there's a lot of teams that deserve to be in. Let's make the playoffs even bigger. Because if everybody's in the playoffs, then nobody's in the playoffs, right? If everybody's super, then nobody is, right? There's got to be some sort of cutoff and level of excellence that you have to hit. You can't just show up and be like, yo, I'm an 8-4 team, put me in, yo. So that's just my thoughts, little 2 cents here. But let's look at the college football playoff ranking. As you can tell, not much has changed. Oregon and Ole Miss swapped spots, which I'm totally fine with. We'll look at Ole Miss's schedule here in just a second, along with Oregon. We'll look at a couple team schedules here in just a moment. And then Miami and Utah swapped. I'm totally fine with that. I was actually at the University of Utah game. Shout out to my friend May. She's awesome. She's phenomenal. She's like, yo, Kyle, you want to go to the Utah game? And I said, yes, I do. And that was a fantastic game. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Michigan did vault themselves all the way up to 15 and are now in the conversation. They were kind of on the fringes, and they still low-key are. But, man, a win against Ohio State this weekend, and holy cow, they're in the conversation. We'll talk about that. Every team below them is, for all intents and purposes, out of the college football playoff, with the exception of Virginia, who still has a shot. Tulane still has a shot. But to all my local fans, you might be wondering, BYU, why did they not move? They beat Cincinnati on the road. They're 10-1. They have a better record than Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Alabama. We'll be talking about that as well as we look at these teams' schedules, because there are, Michigan, Vanderbilt, Utah, Miami, BYU, all those 5 teams right there are currently projected to be out. I think Miami's actually projected to be in because they're assuming to win the ACC. But if they lose or don't win the ACC championship, they're not going to get in. So they're kind of on the fringes here. Whereas all these other teams, 1 through 9, seem to be in comfortably. 1 through 10 even. Alabama seems to be in comfortably. So let's discuss why. And precursor, this is not the final rankings. These top 12 teams aren't in the playoff. None of these teams have secured a spot in their playoff technically. So again, just because BYU is ranked 11 and they're not currently projected to be in, does not mean they're doomed to not get in. Same with number 8, Oklahoma. I'm an Oklahoma Sooners fan. Just because we're currently in does not mean we're actually going to get in. So again, a lot of people are upset about these rankings. A lot of people have questions, have concerns, and as they should, and we'll talk about that, it also is not your end-all, be-all. You are not destined to miss the college football playoff, BYU, just because you're currently not in. There's still opportunity to get in, and we'll be discussing that here in just a second. But first, let's look at the teams that are for sure in. And when I say for sure in, they're not actually for sure in, but they're 99% in. Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, they're all definitely in. I would even argue Georgia is in. Even if they lose to Georgia Tech, a 2-loss Georgia team, I think, gets in. They have some great wins. Their only loss, of course, coming to Alabama. And they're in the SEC, so that bodes well for them. So I think they're definitely a lock. I think those 4 teams are pretty much the only locks. These other teams, 5, 6, 7, Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's a lock actually as well at 9-2, which is absolutely crazy that they're still ahead of Miami. But they've been putting up a lot of points, and the committee really likes that. So committee likes to see what happens on the field. They're not just looking at your record. They're not just looking at your strength of schedule, your strength of victory. They're looking at the product on the field. And with Notre Dame, their argument is, yeah, they're 9-2. They have the same record of Miami. They lost to Miami. Miami has the head-to-head, but Notre Dame just hung 70 points. 70 points. When was the last time you saw a team hang 70 points against an opponent? It's wild. It's absolutely wild. You see 40s, 50s, 60s all the time when they're playing Kentucky middle school. But to hang 70 points on an FBS opponent is quite impressive, according to the committee. So they like Notre Dame right there. Notre Dame has the benefit of not playing in a conference championship game and adding a potential extra loss. So that kind of favors them. We'll talk about that in just a second. But Notre Dame, I think, is another lock. So I think those 5 teams are a lock. I think the committee is going to really only include one Big 12 team. They currently have Texas Tech in. Texas Tech really doesn't have that impressive of a resume. If we were to look at it, which we will, let's take a look at it. Texas Tech beat Utah at Utah. They also beat BYU at home. So I'd say beating BYU at home is their best win, but beating Utah on the road is a very close second. Those are really only their 2 good wins, because what other teams did they beat? At Houston, I mean, that's a good win, but Houston's out of the top 25 now. Kansas has had a bad year. They lost at Arizona State. Oklahoma State's abysmal. Kansas State's below 500. UCF is below 500. So they really have 2 good wins. They have a great win against BYU at home. They have a great win against Utah on the road. So, I mean, they're really holding on to just being atop of the Big 12. And I think people are like, okay, they're going to win the Big 12, so we're going to give them a spot in number 5. I think they're a little too high, in my opinion. I think an Oregon team should be above them. But even like some of these 2-loss teams should be ahead of them. It's kind of interesting because it almost seems like there's a pattern here, because undefeated teams are up here, and then they have all the 10-1 teams, and then they have all the 9-2 teams, and then there's BYU, this outlier right here, where they're like, they don't want to put BYU at number 8 because they think Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Alabama have stronger schedules. But it seems like up here they just got lazy, right? They're just like, okay, 1, 2, 3. I think we can all agree 1, 2, 3. But then like 4, 5, 6, 7, they're like, we don't really want to change any of that. They're all 10-1. It's all the same to us. When really, I would argue that Oklahoma has a stronger schedule than Texas Tech. I would argue that Alabama has a stronger schedule than Texas Tech. Even Oregon, Ole Miss have stronger schedules than Texas Tech. But Texas Tech is ranked at number 5. And again, it doesn't really matter what they're ranked today. It does, but also it's not the end-all be-all. But I do think that the committee, they do get together and they vote. I think it's just easier to keep teams where they are if they don't lose. Like Texas Tech didn't lose. Oregon, they didn't lose. Georgia, they didn't lose. So they just kept them where they were, right? Instead of reevaluating, instead of being this, and this. And I've talked about this before. But anyway, so that's Texas Tech. Oregon is in a very interesting spot because Oregon, currently 10-1, they have to go play Washington in Seattle. Now, Washington's 8-3. They're a good team this year. I think their 3 losses have come against teams like Ohio State and Indiana and some other tougher opponents, maybe Iowa. But but Washington's a good team. The rivalry between Oregon and Washington is the hatred there between Oregon and Washington is there. So Oregon could very well lose this game against Washington. And if they do, I think that they are out. They have to be out, right? Especially if BYU wins and Miami wins and Alabama, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, they all win. Oregon's got to drop below all of them, right? So this is a very important game for them. If Oregon wins against Washington, then this is a very interesting scenario. If they win against Washington, then they don't have to play in the Big Ten championship unless, somehow Indiana loses to Purdue and Ohio State loses to Michigan. They don't have to play in the Big Ten championship, and they avoid having to have another opportunity to lose. And what I mean by that is a couple years ago, Georgia was undefeated, but lost the SEC championship to Alabama. Alabama gets in, Georgia misses out. So Georgia was undefeated the entire season. They lose that game. Alabama gets in because they have the head-to-head over them, and they miss out. So it's like almost in some scenarios, playing in the conference championship game can hurt you more than it can help you. But in the case of BYU, it can only help them. They pretty much need to win the Big 12 championship. And I've talked about this. That's their easiest path into the college football playoff, is to win the Big 12 championship, which I think is very, very likely, actually. They have UCF at home, take care of business. You get into the game. All they got to do is win that game to get into the Big 12 championship game. They'll play Texas Tech. If they can beat Texas Tech, then they're in. If they lose to Texas Tech, then they're out. So I know BYU fans are fretting. They're worried. They're like, well, even if we do lose, a 2-loss BYU team should get in. Unfortunately, not this time around. A 2-loss BYU team will not get in. They, in my opinion, they're not better than Alabama. They're not better than Notre Dame. They're not better than Oklahoma and Miami. I mean, they might have a better schedule than Miami, but Miami, if they win the ACC, then they're automatically in. They would still be better than Utah because they have the head-to-head, even if they had the same record. But it's just not looking good for BYU if they don't win the Big 12 championship. Optimism is great. We can fret and worry all we want, but at the end of the day, what can we control, right? We can control our own thoughts and behaviors, our own outlooks on life, how we view the world. Let us do that today here on Fan Talk. Let us look for some optimism. I'm going to give every team one reason to worry, one reason for optimism. Not every team, but I'll just give a couple teams. I'll start with BYU. One reason to worry is you are currently 10-1 and have a better record than Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Alabama, but you're currently ranked 11 and you are the first team out of the college football playoff. That tells me that the committee is pretty set in their ways on only allowing one Big 12 team to get into the college football playoff, unless somehow Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Alabama lose, which is a possibility, right? So one reason to worry, the bias is slightly against you. You're 10-1. You're currently not projected to get in. Your only path to get in is the Big 12 championship unless these other teams lose. One reason for optimism, you are playing UCF. As I mentioned before, you can beat UCF. You can get to the Big 12 title game. I think you guys can beat Texas Tech. I think you guys are playing well enough. The ground game against Cincinnati was phenomenal. The defense is playing well. If you can limit Texas Tech's offense, you're going to win this game. So that's one reason for optimism. BYU fans, I would stop crying and complaining about where you're ranked right now. You can't control that. What can you control? Go beat the crap out of UCF this week at LaVell Edwards Stadium, and then go beat the crap out of the Texas Red Raiders and punch your ticket to the college football playoff. That's your reason for optimism if you are a BYU fan. Utah, your reason for optimism is the offense is playing really well right now. But your reason for worry is it's a very uphill battle. You do not control your own destiny. You have to have teams lose just to get to the Big 12 title game. Currently, you're not going to get in unless you win the Big 12 title game. So, go have fun. Go beat Kansas. Go do all that you can. Maybe hope for a BYU loss. Hope for a Texas Tech loss. But at the end of the day, you had a fantastic season. And unfortunately, you just are going to miss the bar by this much. And that is okay. It's frustrating, yes, to come this close, but that is okay. I would rather have Utah miss the bar by this much than to have the college football committee be like, okay, let's let 16 teams in. and then just have more and more chaos, more and more teams being like, we deserve to be in, we deserve to be in. It's just too cray-cray. But Utah, I think you're currently out of the mix. Now, here's an interesting team that we're going to be talking about that has not received a lot of attention, at least up until now. The Michigan Wolverines are 9-2. They're currently ranked 15. They're one of those 9-2 teams that haven't really been in the conversation. They have the same record as Oklahoma. Oklahoma has the head-to-head, and Oklahoma has played a tougher schedule, in my opinion, and has won some bigger games. But they have the same record as Notre Dame, as Alabama, Miami, Utah, Vanderbilt, all these teams in front of them, but they are currently ranked behind. What makes this very interesting, they've only played one ranked team up to this point, and that was Oklahoma, and they lost. The rest of their schedule, they're lost to USC. These other teams, they beat Washington. That's a good win. But these other games, these other teams aren't very good. Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, Maryland, not very good. So they don't really have the resume to compete with these other 9-2 teams like Oklahoma, Alabama. But they do play number 1 Ohio State this weekend. They have beat Ohio State not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, but 5 times in a row. When was the last time Ohio State beat Michigan? It was 2019. So 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24 has all gone to the Michigan Wolverines. So what if Michigan beats Ohio State number 1? Then I think the committee is going to put Michigan in. Michigan beats number 1 Ohio State, the best team in the country. That is the best win. They beat them, then Michigan gets in. And I'm sorry, but a 10-2 Michigan team that just beat number 1 Ohio State, they're going to put them in over an 11-1 BYU team. They're going to put them in over 10-2 Miami team if they don't win the ACC title game. Of course, if they win the ACC title game, they get in. But who else is Michigan going to leapfrog? A 10-2 Michigan team that just beat number 1 Ohio State? Do they leapfrog Alabama? A 10-2 Alabama team? Do they leapfrog a 10-2 Notre Dame team? Do they leapfrog a 10-2 Oklahoma team? What is going to happen? That will be absolute chaos. So keep your eyes on that. Michigan, I think that's their only way in. There is a scenario where they somehow make the Big Ten championship. They need Indiana to somehow lose to Purdue. They need Ohio State to lose, of course, beat Ohio State, and then they need Oregon to lose to Washington. So there's kind of a weird scenario there. It could happen, but it's not very likely. But if Michigan beats Ohio State, holy cow, it will be absolute chaos in the college football playoff rankings. Now, I frequent Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and I see a lot of people discussing Notre Dame, a lot of people discussing Miami, a lot of people discussing Oklahoma. Now, I will admit I do have some bias. I think we all have bias towards our favorite teams. Of course, every BYU fan thinks they deserve to be in. Every Oklahoma fan deserves that they should be in. Every Alabama fan thinks they deserve to be in. Utah fans think they deserve to be in. I've even seen some people say number 13 Utah, 9-2 Utah should be in instead of number 8 Oklahoma. And they're like, nobody wants to see 5 SEC teams. And I get it. I do. I get it. And I also kind of agree that I think if we just see SEC teams every single year, I think it takes away a lot from college football. But I will make my case. I will stand my ground and make my case for my Oklahoma Sooners. They have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see, 4 ranked wins, 4 wins over ranked opponents. I'm not counting Auburn anymore because Auburn's 5-6. They were ranked at the time, but they're not that good now, right? But Michigan, ranked number 15, they beat them. Number 14, Tennessee on the road, they beat them. Number 4, Alabama on the road, they beat them. At home against number 22, Missouri, they beat them. So you're telling me that a 9-2 Oklahoma team, their loss is coming to Texas and Ole Miss. Ole Miss currently 10-1, Texas 8-3. Their 2 losses against those teams and their 4 big wins against ranked opponents. Plus, they beat Auburn and handled business against all the other teams. You're telling me that they don't deserve to be in, but a 9-2 Utah team deserves to be in. Or even a 10-1 BYU team. Now, I get it. BYU has the better record. I think BYU should be in. I'm not saying BYU should not be in. But if it's a choice between Oklahoma and BYU, then I'm picking Oklahoma because of these ranked wins at Tennessee, at Alabama. I think the committee really appreciates that because the committee holds SEC teams to such a high standard. Now, if you disagree with that, then that's what you disagree with, but that's what the committee's looking at. And SEC, it's just built different, right? You look at Texas A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama. I mean, they're all fantastic teams. So, but that begs the question, these teams that don't play in the SEC, how do they get in if SEC teams are just heavily favored? And again, that's just so many things that go into picking these teams. I don't think it's perfect. I won't say that my opinion is the best opinion. I just think that there's a lot of craziness that's going to be happening this week, and the committee really needs to dig deep. Like I said earlier, they got these teams that have cemented themselves in. Go reevaluate them. Go reevaluate a 10-1 Texas Tech team. Are they really the 5th best team in the country? I don't think so. Go reevaluate Ole Miss, number 7. They're 10-1, but look at their schedule. It's not that good. They didn't play Alabama. They didn't play Texas A&M. They didn't play Texas, regular Texas. They did play Georgia, and that's who they lost to, and they did beat a good Oklahoma team. But those are their only 2 really good wins. So go reevaluate an Ole Miss. Do they belong in just because they're 10-1? I think it's a trap that they fall into is they see the record, they put them there, they see the conference that they're in, they put them there, and then they have bias against a team like BYU, who's 10-1 in the Big 12, who has some solid wins, but they just don't see it when really they might have just as good as resume as a 10-1 Ole Miss, a 10-1 Oregon, a 10-1 Texas Tech. Of course, Texas Tech has the head-to-head. A 9-2 Notre Dame, a 9-2 Oklahoma, a 9-2 Alabama. There's just a lot that goes into it. There are some fantastic games this weekend that you should be watching. I mean, if these teams lose, if Ole Miss loses, if any of these 10-1 teams lose, are they securely in or do they lose their spot? If Oregon loses, are they out? Is Ole Miss loses, they're out. Losses at this time of the year are so detrimental. Some fantastic games to be watching this week in college football. Go check it out. Go have a wonderful Thanksgiving and watch these fantastic games, and it should be super fun. All right, that's all I have to say about that. Of course, if you guys have comments or things to say, please let me know down and below. I love to have discussions about this. Again, my way is not right at all. I'm just a fan, and I'm just expressing what many of you express, that we're frustrated that our team maybe is not in, or maybe that we don't have the seed that we want. Let's move on to our weekly NFL picks. Again, this is a podcast where we have a group where you can pick NFL games weekly. All you got to do is pick the winner. Join the podcast group. It's super fun. This week starts off, of course, on Thanksgiving, a tradition like no other. The Detroit Lions playing on Thanksgiving is probably the coolest thing ever. They're playing against the Green Bay Packers at home. I am going to go with the Green Bay Packers in this one to upset the Detroit Lions. They beat down on the Lions in week 1, so what tells me they can't do it again? The Lions have been limping the last few weeks. The Giants took them to overtime. They lost to the Eagles in a game where they only scored 6 points. When was the last time you saw the Lions score 6 points? 2011, right? So give me the Green Bay Packers in this one. Should be a fantastic game to start off your Thanksgiving holiday. Kansas City Chiefs and Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys coming off that huge win against the Philadelphia Eagles. I like the Kansas City Chiefs in this one. As much as it pains me to see them creeping back into the AFC playoff race, I just think when you have Andy Reid as your head coach, Steve Spagnuolo as your defensive coordinator, and Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, the Chiefs will always be a threat. Whether they're 6-5, 3-8, or 11-0, they're going to be a threat. And the NFL world is blind to it, counting the Chiefs out. You guys are fools for doing that. Kansas City Chiefs are going to win this game and creep their way back into the AFC playoff picture. Bengals and Ravens. Now, this is very interesting because reports are Joe Burrow is going to try to play this Thanksgiving, which is tomorrow. So that's absolutely crazy. If he does end up playing, I don't know how well he'll do. Baltimore's at home. Give me the Ravens in this one, but it could be fun. 6 games left. The Bengals really trying to save their season at this point. Bears at Eagles. I think this will be a fantastic Black Friday game. I like the Eagles in this one. The Bears are currently 8-3. When was the last time the Bears were 8-3? Let me tell you, it was 2018, and they squared off in the wild card round and lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. Actually, I think it was the divisional round off the Doink field goal. Do you remember that one? That was the Bears' year, but they lost. The Eagles went on to win the Super Bowl that year. Give me the Eagles in this one for this Black Friday matchup. Now we're to Sunday. Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns hosting the San Francisco 49ers. Shedeur Sanders is named the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Give me the 49ers in this one. That's all I have to say about that. Shedeur played pretty well, but he was playing against the Raiders. Time for him to play against the big boys in the 49ers. Jags at Titans. Give me the Jaguars in this one. They won a thriller against the Arizona Cardinals. Titans 1-10. I swear they play every single game at home, but they're currently 0-6 at home. So give me the Jags in this one. Texans and Colts. Now the Texans are playing quite well. They just beat the Buffalo Bills. That defense is flying around. CJ Stroud might be back. Colts coming off a tough loss against the Chiefs, where the Colts were winning the entire game, and then they just blew it. So I think this is a good game for the Colts to bounce back, staple that hole in the AFC South. The Jaguars are right behind them, so if they lose this game, the Jags are in prime position to take over. Texans not too far behind either. Saints and Dolphins. I picked the Saints last week. They let me down. So give me the Dolphins in this one for the toilet bowl matchup of the week. Falcons and Jets. Give me the Falcons in this one. Kirk Cousins is not who he was, but he's playing the Jets. And the Jets are rolling with Tyrod Taylor because Justin Fields is just not cutting it. So give me the Falcons in this one. That's all I got to say about that. Cardinals and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield had a shoulder injury. He's questionable to go. If he can't go, it's going to be Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Bridgewater. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are reeling. They've just had tough opponent after tough opponent after tough opponent. They're bringing in the 3-8 Arizona Cardinals, who I actually think will upset the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Cardinals have been playing great football. Great's kind of a stretch. They've been playing good enough football, but they just keep losing these close games. I think this is a game the Cardinals can win. The Cardinals offense can get clicking with Jacoby Brissett dealing it, and that defense can really upset Teddy Bridgewater. Give me the Cardinals for a major upset against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Rams at Panthers. I like the Rams in this one. The Rams are currently one of the best teams in the league, if not the best team in the league right now, in my opinion. Stafford is dealing. That defense is absolutely crazy. They just obliterated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football. Panthers are very hot. I think even if they do play a hot game, the Rams will be too much for them. Give me the Rams. Vikings and Seahawks. The Vikings officially have a quarterback problem. J.J. McCarthy, they need to have some conversations about them. They're wishing they kept Sam Darnold. 4-7 Vikings. Give me the Seahawks. Speaking of Sam Darnold, there he is playing his old team as the Seattle's quarterback. Give me the Seahawks in this one. Bills and Steelers. I like the Bills to bounce back in this one. They had that tough loss against the Houston Texans, but the week before they had a good game. So they're just doing this back and forth. Good game, bad game. Good game, bad game. Luckily, this is their good game week. Give me the Bills on the road against the Steelers. Chargers and Raiders. Give me the Chargers in this one. Raiders are probably the worst team in the league other than the Titans. I'm just going to say that. Pete Carroll, poor guy. The guy's pushing 80. He's coaching a team in Vegas where Geno Smith's the quarterback. They just got rid of Chip Kelly as our offensive coordinator because they literally could not score against the Cleveland Browns. Yes, the Browns have a good defense, but you're an NFL team. Score points. Sunday Night Football, the Broncos against the Commanders. I like the Broncos in this one, even if Jaden Daniels comes back. If Jaden Daniels comes back, it might be a little closer than a lot of people think. But I like the Broncos to continue to roll and dig their hooves deeper into the AFC West. Giants and Patriots on Monday Night Football. Man, that's a classic Eli Manning, Tom Brady throwback game. I like the Patriots in this one. They're having a fantastic season. Who would have bet that the Patriots would be 10-2 this year? I sure wouldn't have. But give me the Patriots in this one to win Monday Night Football. And that is our NFL picks for this week. Again, you can join the podcast group. I'll link it down below in the description. I've talked a lot today about football, so I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you so much for listening to Fan Talk. Again, Fan Talk you can find anywhere you get your podcast, also on YouTube. If you liked what you heard, please like, subscribe, comment down below. I appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next week for another edition of Fan Talk.